So it's great to be here this morning to have a chat with three-time champion jockey, Oísin Murphy, ahead of next week's Royal Ascot. We're sitting in 1772 at the wonderful Elcot Park, the retreat at Elcot Park in Berkshire. Oisin, this hotel's local to you, isn't it?
It is, it's very useful.
Do you come here much?
Yeah, it's very handy to have it only down the road, and it's popular because they have the fitness area here and quite a cool pool, and the food is excellent, so it's a facility I'd use pretty regularly.
Yeah, brilliant. They've got a lovely Japanese restaurant, haven't they?
Yeah. I think we're very lucky we don't have to venture into London for a little bit of sushi or sashimi.
Yes,
you can
brilliant.
just pop in the car and come down the road.
Yeah, very good. Can you share a bit about what inspired you to become a jockey, and who were your sort of role models when you were growing up?
I remember when my uncle Jim Cullity would come to visit, and I would obviously want to spend time with him because I had seen him riding big winners on television, and he would be walking down through Killarney town to go for a bite to eat or whatever, or even to mass. My grandmother would drag him to church, and everyone would stop him and say, well done on best mate or Bindery or whatever horse it was that he'd recently won a big race on. And I was probably between the ages of 4 and 7 or 8, and that was mesmerizing. And for the next couple of years I followed the racing on television. I was obviously very small. I'm not much bigger now, but I was very tiny then, and my father and grandfather were always big Kieran Fallon fans. I wasn't allowed to be a Frankie Dettori fan because he was too flamboyant. And funnily, I've just thought I actually named a dog after Frankie Dettori in the end. But I loved riding, and I had ponies outside the back door, and most of them were to sell, so I would jump them and compete them a bit, and then we would sell them. But when I was beginning to get a bit bigger, I was wondering whether I could possibly become a flat jockey. I started weighing myself every day and being conscious of the fact I need to be light enough if I wanted to make it. And I spent the summer holidays with leading trainers. Firstly, Tommy Stack. His son Fozzie had already taken over the stable, but not in name. And then 2 summers with Aidan O'Brien, and obviously his children were a similar age to me. And he actually filled me with a lot of confidence because I was allowed to ride some gallops, and I felt he went out of his way to give me some advice with regards my riding, and I don't know, he was just very enthusiastic. And when I finished school, I had to make a choice whether to try and be a jockey in Ireland, where there isn't racing every day and the horse population is much smaller, or come to England. And fortunately, Andrew Boulding had 10 apprentice riders at the time, but he managed to find a space for me, and they didn't make it a secret that it was going to be very competitive. But I think 6 of those 10 became fully fledged riders, as in professionals. And many of your listeners or readers may have heard of some of them: Kieran Schumacher, Rob Hornby, Dan Muscat, Jack Garrity, Joey Haynes, Tom Brown. That might even be 7 if you include me. But we got great opportunities, and we were taught some basic manners as well. Andrew's wife, Annalisa, and Mrs. B.
I know her well.
They were a little bit strict when it was needed, and it kind of began from there. So I moved to Parkhouse Stables in Kingsclear in October 2012, So I had finished school that summer. And then my first race rides were in May 2013.
Okay. Gosh, wow. Well, you've had a very good grounding.
Yeah.
No wonder you are where you are.
Well, yeah. I had good family support, and no one told me that I was going to make it.
No.
And it was always apparent to me that you needed a lot of luck and then
Hard
a fair bit of
graft.
hard graft,
Yeah.
yeah.
So winning the British champion jockey title 3 times in a row must have been so exhilarating. What did these victories mean to you, personally and professionally?
In 2018, I spoke to my agent, a man called Gavin Horn, and I realised that Andrew Boulding and Qatar Racing, so I'm retained by a man called Sheikh Fahd bin Abdullah bin Khalifa Al Thani, and I hinted, Andrew and Sheikh Fahd hinted the fact they felt like I had an opportunity to go well in that year's championship, and Andrew would often ask, well, how many winners are you behind Sylvester de Souza now? And it probably filled me with confidence that maybe one day I might be in the position to give it a good go. And the following year in 2019, I had a very good start, and I had some lean patches as well. And I remember I was like 20 in front and then went 5 or 6 behind, and it was mentally very taxing. So by the end of 2019, I was exhausted, and I was going to Japan a few days later, combined with a few trips to Hong Kong and Australia as well, because at the end of our season, you have all those big international meetings abroad. So the Melbourne Cup in Australia, and then there's a few Group 1s in Japan, and then the Hong Kong Cup. There's actually 4 Group 1s in one day.
Wow.
In December in Hong Kong, and it was great to be wanted and being offered rides at all these events and top class fixtures, but I didn't really know how to manage my time, and certainly I spent all my free time socializing, basically drinking the shit out of it. So I got through that winter, and I was very successful in Japan, and I rode a lot of good horses. And 2020, I needed to do it again for myself, really, just to prove a point. And I think it was much more plain sailing. I had a great start, and I rode at a pretty high level throughout the year. And then 2021, I was aware, actually, it's something that I haven't spoken about a lot, but I knew that I was going to get in trouble for not quarantining when I went on holiday to Mykonos in Greece. And by Royal Ascot 2021, so this time 3 years ago, I wasn't sure if I was definitely going to be able to ride through Ascot Week, because the BHA, the British Horse Racing Authority, had been in contact with me, basically asking me to own up to going to Greece, and I had done so. So I was concerned. I was taking it kind of week by week, but also making the most of my time in the saddle every week. And I knew I had great rides at that Ascot meeting, and it was an incredible roller coaster. So I was, the first few days, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I think I had winners every day, and I was wearing the leading jockey armband. And for me now, this is something I never even dreamt of, because I always felt Ryan Moore and Frankie Dettori were in a league apart, because not only they're fantastic riders, but the quality of rides they have each day. And I put myself in that position, and then on the Friday, I was riding Dragon Symbol, a horse I bought off Norman Williamson, an ex-jump jockey, and sold him to one of my Japanese owners. And I won the Commonwealth Cup on him, and I got it taken off me in the stewards' room by Frankie Dettori. So there was a little bit of a badging match, and and we both bounced off each other, and the stewards took the view that the dragon symbol deserved to be taken down, and it was just
tough.
very tough. And I had to come out in the next race, and I rode alcohol free in the coronation, and this is why my relationship with the Bouldings is so great. There was no stress or like high pressure, you've got to do this or that. Jeff Smith, her owner, and David Bowe, the racing manager, were there, and I said, I'll go forward, but I'll get behind the leader. And there was a question mark over the ground. I don't know who mentioned, would she be okay on the ground, because we had torrential rain.
Yeah.
And I said, no, she'll be fine. I think she'll win. And she duly won.
Yes, I remember that.
And then the next day, I think the second last race or something, King Power, the owners of Leicester City Football Club, they hadn't had a winner all week. And we had this one horse who tailed himself off at Chester for whatever reason. I rode him work the week before, and I was like really certain that this horse would win. And I told, but it's a 20 runner handicap, round the bend, mile and a quarter at Ascot. And Andrew said, well, go forward, he's lazy, so get him out of the gate. And anyway, I sat last, and he won as well.
God, amazing.
And I kept that leading jockey's armband, and it was just incredible. All that pressure that I put on myself, the not knowing whether I was going to be able to ride that week. And then obviously there were further BHA interviews throughout that year, but I managed to get through the whole of 2021.
What a relief. And what would you say was your most memorable race that you've won so far? What stands out to you the most? I mean, I'm sure that there are loads, but is there one in particular?
Well, any time meeting Her Majesty the Queen was obviously very special, God bless her. When I won the race named after her, the Queen Elizabeth II trophy at Ascot on Kipco British Champions Day. So Sheikh Fahad's family sponsored the whole day. And I was riding his horse, Roaring Lion, and he actually watched the race in the presence of Her Majesty the Queen with her brother, with his brother, Sheikh Hamad. And I knew that was very special for them. And then to be able to win on the horse, I mean, I was on the best horse.
But how amazing for it to come off.
Yeah, and they led him in, and he was like the most boisterous, beautiful looking grey stallion. Well, he was a colt at the time. It was truly
what an amazing
wonderful.
feeling.
And actually, I ride a son of Roaring Lion actually at this year's Royal Meeting.
Oh wow!
And he'll be favourite in the Hardwick Stakes.
Okay.
So it's great to see those bloodlines shining through.
Wow! Oh, fingers crossed for him.
Yeah.
Next week.
Yeah. Please God.
Yeah. So Oisin, you faced some challenges, including a positive test for cocaine and breaching alcohol rules. Can you talk a bit about what happened and how you've worked through this difficult period?
Yeah, I suppose from the first few years of my apprenticeship, although I was only apprentice for really a year and a half, I was very focused on trying to make it as a jockey, and I never went down the pub with the lads, and I very rarely drank. And as I had more success, I started to socialise more. I would eat out every evening, and because I had a driver, I would often drink in the car on the way home from the races. So I got into this habit of drinking every day, and by 2018, I suppose I was definitely drinking too much, but I always had people to babysit me, and I was getting away with it. And then in the last few years, with the pressure of Jockeys Championship or whatever, and it was all self-pressure, I was staying out until like 2 o'clock in the morning or 4 o'clock in the morning, and I would never miss a social event. And when I failed that drug test in France, I was below the British levels, and so if I did the urine sample here, I would have been fine. And the night before, I was at a party, and there was cocaine being used by everyone, basically. And I'd been around it, but I wasn't silly enough to do coke that night, knowing that I was riding in France the next day in a Group 1, and still, it was stupidity, because I had enough warnings from people that I needed to be careful and sort myself out and slow down on the drinking. And I got that suspension from France the end of that year, and it was suggested by the likes of Annalisa and David Redvers, who's Shake Fad's racing manager, that I stopped drinking altogether. But I wasn't ready, and I definitely wasn't ready. And then I spent most of 2021, actually, apart from Ascot week, I don't know where I found the strength, or for whatever reason, when I was leading rider at Royal Ascot in 2021, I decided I wasn't drinking that week, and I was able to reap the rewards. And it got to the end of 2021, and I remember I was riding for Shake Fad, actually, in the Phillies Mile. It was like, so maybe the beginning of October, and it was an early start, because it starts getting dark that time of year early. So, and there was like an 8 race card, or maybe even 9 race. So I showed up to the races at midday, and no breathalyzer, and I thought, thank goodness, I'm going to get through this again today. I weighed out, and I was obviously drunk, because the BHA organised for someone to come and breathalyse me, and I failed. I was under the drink driving limit, but over the riding limit, which is twice the drink drive. Sorry, which is half the drink drive. And that was the 3rd time in 3 years that I had been over. So I got in the car, and I had my driver as usual, and I got back to Lambourne, and I was obviously incredibly embarrassed, and really I could have been sacked by all the people that had been using me, and I thought to myself, well, if I get through today sober, that'll be the first day. So the first day probably since June, and I don't know how I spent that evening, but I got up the next day, and I knew I had one chance of riding a winner, and it's quite a famous race, the Cesarewitch. And I went out to the paddock, and I know a lot of the Thurlow Thoroughbred syndicate owners, and they were all very nice, which was good. And again, I was quite sheepish around the weighing room, because I was still embarrassed from the day before. I mean, people have short memories, but not that short. And Nicky was there, and he said, well, this horse is a galloper. Go forward on him. I want you to lead if you can. And I ignored him. I knew I was never going to do that. So I actually sat last on Buzz, and he came through the field when they were all getting tired, and he won. And probably that success gave me that bit of a boost that I am a kind of a good rider, and I can still achieve, and I want to sort myself out now. This is maybe my final chance, because I can if I keep riding, I have to stop drinking, and I can give up riding and drink the rest of my life, or until I run out of money, which at the rate I was socialising, was going to be in the next few years anyway. I started counselling then, and I still speak to the same counsellor now. So it started off as once a week, nearly always in person, and then I got it up to twice a week, probably after 6 months. So since spring 2022, I mean, it's unbelievable to think I've been I've been in counselling now for more than 2.5 years. Feels like 5 minutes.
But it helps obviously massively.
Yeah, because I want to achieve, and even we don't have to wind the clock back too long, but the Chester meeting I always find is like high stress. It's one of those tight tracks that even when you're really on the ball, things can go wrong. You don't get luck in running, or and it's an easy track as well to pick up careless riding suspensions. And the first 2 days of Chester this year, I had no winners, and I picked up a 2-day ban as well. And I had ridden lots of horses that I thought should win or could win, and I had counselling on the Friday morning before the next day's racing, and I same routine. I walked from, I stayed with a friend of mine's parents, and I walked from their house to the track. It's like 2.5 miles. Walked the course, same routine, porridge at breakfast. And I had 2 winners then on the Friday, and I had a painful few days of just dealing with that kind of stress and why isn't it happening for me, and my strike rates going down, and then all of a sudden it switches around. And I can't speak for other people, but there is another jockey called Kieran Schumacher who recognised his alcoholism much earlier than I did. His probably hit he was a huge red flag before I was, but his story is even more inspirational, it's kind of up to the person, but once you've said you've had enough, then you really can change your life around. But I can't reiterate the fact that it's no good people telling you. It has to come yourself. It has to come from within, because people can convince you to do something for a period of time, but it never lasts.
Well, good on you for doing it. It's brilliant. And following on from that, how important has support from family, friends and the racing community been in managing your professional and personal life challenges? I mean, I know Annalisa and Andrew have been a great support to you, haven't they?
Yeah, massively, because they always made me feel welcome. I got a 14-month suspension and a 30 grand fine. 9 months.
30 grand?
Yeah. 9 months of which were for the COVID breach, and the full fine was for the COVID breach. So actually, for my reckless drinking, I only got 5 months, which is quite extraordinary. But during that time, Annalisa would check in all the time, and Andrew would say, "Oh, come and ride out. I have this horse called Chaldine that you must ride." And bear in mind, Chaldine was an incredible racehorse, but he wasn't a flashy workhorse. So there was many a morning I went in there excited, thinking he was going to burn up the gallops, and he just went in front of his lead horse. But they made me feel welcome, and it was extraordinary because it was the first time in my adult life that I'd been able to eat as well.
Yes. What was that
so
like?
I found myself in a good mood all the time.
Well, that's
my earning capacity was slightly limited, but I didn't have much to spend money on, other than
eating.
And my mortgage, So it was an interesting.
Did you good?
Yeah, and I went to loads of dinners and lunches, and drove myself home because I didn't need a driver, and remembered what was discussed, and I took a little bit more control of my finances as well. I never knew how to log into my online banking, and I met with my accountants for the first time, and I did lots of kind of what I thought were normal things, but were very strange to me. And
a lot of growing up. I guess.
Yeah,
has
yeah,
happened.
definitely. And to think I was like 26, 27, I'm 28 now. So yeah, it was interesting. And actually, I looked at some online courses, but I never went any further than that. You know, I'd love to say that I have a degree in geography or economics or something, but it hasn't happened to me.
No, hasn't happened to me either. Looking ahead to Royal Ascot, that's now literally just over a week away. Can you tell me a bit about the rides you hope to have?
Yeah, so this is the most stressful time of year. I'm in a very good mood this morning.
Good.
But from when the entries start appearing from next Wednesday, I will begin to start thinking about whether the horses are good enough, how I'm going to ride them. Have they had the right preparation? Even things that are out of my control, that's probably the worst thing. But I'll be busy. I'll have probably 6 or 7 rides every day. It's a meeting where I really, really want to achieve, but it can be a very lonely week. Last year, for example, I had 6 seconds before I had a winner.
Oh, how frustrating.
Yeah, and then I won the Commonwealth Cup, which is a Group 1 for 3-year-olds, on a horse called Shaquille, and I only secured the ride the morning of declaration, so 48 hours before. Yeah. So he was James Doyle's ride, and he became available at like 9 a.m. on the Wednesday morning for Friday. And all of a sudden I win one of the major races at the meeting, so I was very fortunate to get on him. Otherwise, it would have been a winless Royal Ascot for me. And this year I have reasonable chances. Probably last year I had better chances in the handicaps because I felt like some of the horses were rated really well, and they were better than their ratings because they hadn't had a chance to prove themselves yet. I don't probably feel like that's the case this year, but in the championship type races, I think I have good chances. So the most famous race at Ascot, the Ascot Gold Cup, I was second in last year on Coltrane. He goes there again. I think he's had a great preparation, so it's extraordinary what can change a horse's mind, but by putting a tiny pair of cheek pieces on him, he's now become keen again. And I couldn't get him to go in Dubai this year or on his last few starts last year. He just wouldn't. And Andrew and the owners were like, are we going to get him back, the Mariscottis? And it was Andrew's idea to stick those little sheepskins on him.
Amazing.
And
such a small piece of equipment.
Exactly. And he basically ran away with me last time, and we went quite a strong pace, so that was really good. And I think he's got a good chance in the Ascot Gold Cup. The Roaring Lion Simple Verse, Middle Earth, he actually won his last start at Newbury. He's going to run in the Hardwick, where he'll probably take on one of the King's horses. I'm just trying to think of his name, Desert something. William Haggis trains him. He actually won at the meeting last year. But I'd hope he'll go very well. And then Chaldean's sister, Kaseya, she's faster than Chaldean. She's Kingman versus Frankel. She's going to run in the Queen Mary, and I think she can go very well. So really, they're probably my top 3. And if I could win on any of them, I'd be over the moon. But the Ascot Gold Cup probably has more significance than any other race, you know. And it's the one I always think you remember who won it year on year, you know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Oisin, so what lessons do you feel you've learnt from the highs and lows of your career, that you think could help young jockeys entering the sport? Any words of wisdom?
Yeah, I often notice a similar maybe roller coaster progress to many riders. So they begin and they're incredibly determined and focused, and it doesn't happen for them right away, but they keep working at it, and all of a sudden they get going, And then they begin to enjoy it or aren't as focused. And then what happens is it slows down for them, and they aren't riding winners every day and go through that kind of lull that most professional sports people go through. And then they become disheartened and they stop trying. And I think the key is maybe to look at not just jockeys, but other, if you're into football or tennis or whatever, and notice that it's never smooth sailing for them. There's always times when things are going really well, and then other times where it's not happening. But to believe in yourself and remember that we're lucky to be on this earth, and try and enjoy the fresh air that we're fortunate enough to breathe in. And I speak to my counsellor a lot about this, because I get I think a lot about perspective, and obviously the wars that are going on in the world, and the poverty that is it in front. We never have to look too far away, but with having perspective, it's also to remember that it's important to remember that it's not your fault or my fault that people are in these situations, and just try and enjoy the very simple moments,
absolutely.
Today I was able to drive here. I'm healthy. Had a lovely cup of coffee. I know it sounds like very simple, but
it's important to remember the little things.
when I was at the worst of my drinking, I'd have been up till 3 o'clock last night. I'd have probably fallen asleep on the sofa. I'd still be drunk now. I wouldn't have been I guarantee you I'd have shown up here, but I wouldn't have made much sense, or you'd have had to edit out some of the content. And
well, definitely won't need to do any editing here. You interview brilliantly. When your racing career finishes, which hopefully won't be for a very long time, do you think you might like to become a show jumper or even a venter, perhaps?
I have horses with Oliver Townend, and
do you?
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
And I have a very good speed horse that actually won a 5-star class in Cannes on Thursday, called Petite, with a rider called Richard Howley, who's in the top 40 in the world now. He's an Irishman based in Wetherby, and obviously Oliver Townend's based in Cheshire. So I don't get to see my horses very much, but the boys are very good at sending me videos, and the idea is I pay for them the full purchase price up front, and then the two lads, they cover all the costs until we sell them. And then whatever profit, thankfully, they know them because they're such good riders, they normally sell well. Then we split the profit whatever way. And I really enjoy it because it gives me something outside, and I feel like I can help the lads out a bit as well. Definitely. And they seem to enjoy it as well, and they kind of follow my racing. And
great setup.
I wanted to ride at a high level as a child. My mother sent me to all the best instructors in Ireland, and I'm very fortunate that she did that. But I definitely rode better at 14 than I do now at 28, and I get occasional lessons. Like on Good Friday before Newcastle, I jumped 3 horses, and I got to jump at Hickstead last year, and I fell off in the main arena in the Speed Derby. I came out the front door on a horse that was like fully prepared, and I'm sure should have probably won the class, so that was embarrassing. And I'll continue maybe to jump a little bit through the year, but I even enjoy getting lessons, or like coming down to cross pole in the warm up, and I get a huge buzz out of it, and going into the cross country field and like trying not to kill myself or the horse, but like going a little bit too fast at small obstacles like novice height fences is quite fun. And as regards to after my career, I'd like to continue maybe to buy and sell, but maybe a bit more. I do rely on the two lads though, because they ride at such a high level, and maybe compete a bit as an amateur, you know. As I'd like to be a good amateur if I could, and also, you know, I will never be taking on the likes of Andrew Balding or those really top young trainers, but I'd love to have some runners in point to points, or
I'm sure you'd be very good at
over jumps. Well, I know how hard it is to be a trainer, and obviously whatever about the equine side of it, dealing with horses getting sick and injured, also dealing with the disappointed owners.
I know, the owners thing must be the most difficult thing.
Well, and then you have, you know, the jockeys that then make mistakes, and even when they're doing their very best. So I don't have any grand ambitions to train 100 horses, but maybe
nice
a handful.
To dabble in it.
Yeah.
And finally, Oisin, Elcot are actually apparently having a Royal Ascot preview evening here on Wednesday, 12th of June. Have you got any top tips you could share with us for next week?
Yeah, I can certainly go through a few. I think notable speech in the St James's Palace Stakes is going to be very hard to beat. Obviously, Richard Hannon has Rosalien, who's not trained far from here as opposition, but I think notable speech will benefit having not gone to Ireland like Rosalien has. So notable speech won the Kipco 2000 guineas at Newmarket. Rosalien was second. Then Rosalien went to Ireland and won the Irish 2000 guineas. I think that's a very good race, and I think it's a 2-horse race really. I think Middle-earth can go very well in the Hardwick. He's obviously my mount. If we look at the 2-year-old races, I think Aidan O'Brien will have a very strong hand.
Yes.
I think I ride one for Joseph O'Brien in the Coventry. And the fact he's already booked me before the entries come out, I hope that's a good sign. Maybe, you know, that could be an each way sort of play for someone. Putting the gun to my head, I ride Evade for Archie Watson in the Jersey. And although he only just won at Epsom, he did a lot wrong. And I think he's an interesting horse because he'll be a big price because he's quite difficult to ride. He's very hot. And I can definitely see him running in the first 3 or 4. And normally in the Jersey with a big field, you'll get paid first 4 or 5 each way money. So yeah, without giving too many, I think they're probably the most likely horses.
Fantastic. I wonder what the ground will start as next week.
I'm sure
there's going to be a few showers, I think, aren't there?
Yeah, I'm sure they will want it to be as close to good as possible, because obviously with the amount of racing it'll be drying up all day. They won't want it too firm, but most of the horses I ride will be fine on good or faster ground.
Well, that's probably what hopefully they'll get.
Sure.
Thank you so much, Oisin.
No, my pleasure.
That is really, really kind and very interesting to chat to you. Thank you, and good luck next week.
Thank you very much.
Have everything crossed for you.
Cheers.